This is the first video on the GCSE History Germany course, and we will be looking at Germany under Kaiser Wilhelm II. Just a quick disclaimer, this is for students doing the AQA side of the course. If you're studying Edexcel, the course officially begins a bit later in 1918. However, this is still really useful background knowledge. To understand Germany, we need to understand a bit of background knowledge with the creation of the German Empire. Before 1871, there was actually no country called Germany. Instead, you had a collection of dozens of small states which had a similar language and culture. The largest and most powerful of these Germanic states was Prussia, which was ruled by King Wilhelm I, and his most important advisor, Otto von Bismarck, the minister-president. Bismarck is often considered to be one of the greatest nation builders in history because of his role in uniting Germany. Bismarck deliberately provoked a series of wars with Denmark in 1864, Austria in 1866, and France in 1870. Each war increased Prussia's power and encouraged the German states to unite against a common enemy. The Franco-Prussian War was especially important, and after defeating France, the German states officially united in 1871. In a very important location, the German Empire was proclaimed at the Palace of Versailles in France. This deeply humiliated the French, and they will of course be out for revenge, but we'll get to that later. So in 1871, the German Empire was created. The King of Prussia became Kaiser Wilhelm I, the Emperor of Germany. Germany was a new nation, and Prussia dominated the empire. The Prussian aristocracy held the most power in the government and the army, and the most important positions in the government was the Chancellor, which was of course given to Bismarck. Although the Kaiser was technically very powerful, Wilhelm I largely left day-to-day government to Bismarck. He had several major challenges, such as creating a common currency, a legal system, and also integrating ethnic minorities such as Poles, Danes, and French speakers into the empire. In 1888, Kaiser Wilhelm I had died. His son, Frederick III, became Kaiser, but died after only 3 months. As a result, Frederick's son, Wilhelm II, became the Kaiser at the age of 29. This is why 1888 is known as the year of the three emperors. Apart from the name, Wilhelm I was nothing like his grandfather, and he had a very different view of what it meant to be the emperor. He strongly believed in autocracy, meaning that he wanted to rule with personal control and authority. He disliked sharing his power and wanted to weaken the role of the Chancellor. Early into his reign, he sacked Bismarck and completely shifted German policy. Now, I think it's good to understand a bit about Wilhelm as a person, because his personality really impacted his ability to rule effectively. Due to complications at birth, he was born with a disability, and his left arm was severely underdeveloped and partially paralysed. Many historians believe that this contributed to a deep sense of insecurity in the prince, and he often tried to appear strong and powerful to hide this. He was also extremely impulsive and quick-tempered, frequently changing his mind, and reacted badly to criticism. His advisors shielded the Kaiser from criticism, which meant that he did not always understand Germany's real problems, which, as you can probably work out, wasn't the best trait for a ruler. One historian described him as blustering, over-theatrical, arrogant, yet profoundly insecure. You also need to understand some of the changes occurring in Germany at the time. The Industrial Revolution came quite late to Germany, and when the country was unified in 1871, it was still a largely rural-based and agricultural economy. About 2/3 of Germans lived in the countryside, and countries like Britain and France were way ahead of the game. However, from the 1890s onwards, Germany experienced rapid industrial growth as millions of people moved from the countryside to the cities. By 1914, Germany produced twice as much steel as Britain. It produced 1/3 of the world's electrical goods and had the largest chemical industry in the world. Germany's share of world trade was nearly as high as Britain's by World War I and double that of France. It is really staggering how much progress they were making, and before the war, it really felt like Germany was a country on the rise. Despite this success, Germany faced several serious problems and 3 key issues. 1, the growth of socialism, 2, the political system, and 3, Prussian dominance. As Germany's cities expanded rapidly, cities like Berlin or Munich became some of Europe's largest. Industrialization created a huge urban working class. Workers often faced low pay, long hours, poor housing, and dangerous conditions. As a result, many joined trade unions to fight for better conditions and pay. and many developed a political voice attracted to the ideas of socialism, the belief that wealth and power should be shared equally. The main socialist party was a Social Democratic Party, the SPD, and in 1912 the party was the largest and won 1/3 of all the votes. The SPD was similar to Britain's Labour Party at the time in that it represented the workers and worked closely with the trade unions. Some socialists wanted peaceful reform, but others were more extreme and wanted to support a revolution to replace the Kaiser and have the workers control the country. This frightened the ruling elites. Germany had an elected parliament called the Reichstag, and all men over 25 could vote. This was actually quite a progressive idea, and you may think that Germany was basically democratic. Well, not quite. Unlike in Britain, where parliament's authority was above the king, in Germany's case, the Kaiser's authority was above the parliament, the Reichstag. So although politicians would be elected, and they could discuss laws that the Kaiser proposed, the Kaiser could ignore the Reichstag and he could do what he wanted. At the end of the day, power still lied with the Kaiser and his ministers. But who were the people actually advising the Kaiser? The Kaiser's advisors mainly came from the Prussian aristocracy, especially wealthy landowners and army generals known as Junkers, spelt with a J. These men were conservative in their thinking, meaning they wanted to keep the old system in place and opposed any changes such as democracy or socialist ideas. Whilst the socialist-dominated Reichstag represented the German people at the time, they were completely at odds with these advisors. As the Prussian elites were also army leaders, the Kaiser was a lot more willing to listen to military chiefs over his elected politicians, who encouraged him to be more aggressive with his foreign policy. Prussian militarism helped push Germany towards an arms race with Britain and an aggressive foreign policy, which would eventually lead to the First World War. In the next video, we will look at Germany's role in the run-up to the First World War and the war itself, focusing on events from a German perspective. See you then.